Hey guys, and welcome to STTVShow episode number 2 on this channel. It's a little later than I wanted to go up, but I wanted to do a fair bit of research and stuff into the topic that we're going to cover today, and just obviously talk to you guys about it as we do. So, this week's topic was suggested by Robert Doyle. His YouTube channel is Harulian1000. I will link that down below just so you guys can check it out. So the topic for this week is the stereotypes on Irish teenagers or youths in general. This kind of ties into the last video on this channel, where I was saying about the clubbing culture and the drugs culture and stuff like that, where, you know, teenagers descend on a nightclub, there's always drugs related somewhere. Not everyone takes them, but people do. And the topic this time ties very much into that. To put it straight, we're talking about Irish people between the ages of around about 12 upwards to 20. Now that's covering the youth of Ireland, and it's covering teenagers in Ireland, because generally when you get to 20 you're not considered a teenager anymore. Some people still do, a lot don't, so we're not going to get into that as such. But just covering that's a broad base there. That is 8 years. People from 10 upwards can be stereotyped. People from 8 upwards can be stereotyped, depending where they come from and depending on what hits the media. Because yeah, you might hear about someone, like an 8-year-old boy in the media who broke into some woman's house and robbed the place. You know, you do hear that, but it's not to stereotype everyone. So we're looking at around about 12 up to 20 inclusive of both those ages. The stereotypes that we would generally be looking at is alcohol, drugs, smoking, crime, just all stuff like that. And what has to be thrown out there is the generalised stereotypes that are given to teenagers and youths in Ireland is this. They are disgusting people who roam the streets with their hoods up, breaking into houses, robbing people, getting absolutely off their heads on alcohol, getting as high as kites on drugs, and just smoke until their heart's content. That is it. That is the stereotype that surrounds most Irish teenagers in this country, and that is ridiculous. Now, it really is. And I can say that now coming from a perspective of someone that doesn't do any of that. As I mentioned in the last video, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I hardly ever drink. If I do, it's very little. And I obviously don't go robbing places. For me to look on at people, yeah, I do see the people that do that. Yeah, I even stereotype people that don't do it, just because they look like they would. And yeah, it's all the fault of this country. People my own age, I mean, I'm 20 now. I'm 20 now, which means I'm just at the end of the bracket, the age bracket that I've given. And I even look down at people who are younger because they have their hoods up. They're going around talking and bopping their head around the place. I think, oh great, look at this guy. I wouldn't want to pass him in the street because I'd be afraid by the time I pass him, I'd be dead. Honestly, that's the way this country has people thinking. And for me, when I fit into that age group, to think that of other people in my age bracket, that's just not normal. That's not right at all. And I shouldn't be thinking that about people. But I'm not the only one that does it. Most people in this country do it. Especially the elderly generation. Our minds are being corrupted by this. And yeah, it is because of select number of people. Just a select number of people who actually do go around and break into places, who do go around and get off their heads on drink and drugs. They are genuinely putting a bad name on everyone in their own age group. So just a little bit of the facts anyway, because instead of me ranting as such. The problem it is that the media seems to corrupt a lot of things. The media usually focuses on teenage groups and stuff, and looks at them like this. They say to themselves, we have some teenagers. They've broken into this place. They've robbed this place. Oh, there's a story of people out on a leaving cert night, on a leaving certificate, like celebration, and they're off having sex on benches, and they're off getting off their heads on alcohol and all that stuff. And the media thinks, okay, right, that's what you say. Is this what... And then they just... Big giant headline, is this what our country's turning into? Is this the youth of Ireland? And leave it at that. They just go on this big whole thing about, you know, why do we let our children go out and celebrate, or why do we let our children go out to these places? Why do our children go to nightclubs? The media just says that. They just come out and say it blatantly. What they also do, which is incredibly bad, I am aware that there is such a thing as domestic violence and domestic abuse, and I am aware it happens. I am aware that many men hit many women in relationships, and that is awful. I mean, it really is. But what the media seems to do as well, on top of what I've just mentioned, is they seem to represent men of the age 12 to 20 as being in gangs, committing a hell of a lot of crimes, and being abusers. And they represent women as the victims and the vulnerable people. I am not denying that there is such a thing as violence towards women, but I am also not denying there is such a thing as violence towards men. So to say that a guy between 12 and 20 goes out and just hits women for the sake of it is bad. And the reason I mention this is because very recently there was a video put out where there were 3 guys walking along Dublin City Centre. And what happened in this video was one guy was recording 2 other guys. And one of the other guys, he was talking. He's giving a bit of a story. And he said about when he assaulted a woman to steal her iPhone and then proceeded to threaten a taxi driver with a screwdriver if the taxi driver spoke or reported him or anything like that. This guy was glorifying the abuse of women. Now this guy was about my age. But he puts a bad name on everyone else between 12 and 20 because he went out, he assaulted a woman, he stole her iPhone, and then he threatened to kill someone else. It's just that now, that is sickening, and they are searching for these 3 guys. Specifically this one guy. You know, they're going through social media and everything to try and find these 3 guys. But the problem is, just because he did it does not mean we all went and do it. Because we don't. But that is because of the media. Because social media is exactly just that. Media. When we share a video of people beating up someone, we look at that and we think, there you are, there's the youth of Ireland. Right there. Beating up women. Stealing their iPhones. Threatening taxi drivers. Threatening someone of a public service. You know? Oh, there you are, he stole the car, he drove off. That's the youth of Ireland. Really? I don't think so. Another story, though, is of a blog post I read from a woman in Cork. And she was talking about a story that was in the Cork Echo, which is a local newspaper. And it basically said in the story, 300 Cork youth descended on a park. 300 of them descended on a park. And this was the menacing gangs coming to life. What? What menacing gangs? I will put it to you this way. I am a YouTuber, a vlogger, whatever you want to call me. And there are things called meetups, which is generally where you get a group of YouTubers or vloggers or whatever meeting other people. And you could get 100 or 200 people there because they're meeting other YouTubers, they're collaborating, they're making videos, they're organising to make videos, and they're meeting up to produce something. And they're giving out the 300 people are meeting in Cork, and when it was kind of for the same thing, they're meeting up for a cause. They weren't meeting up to just, I don't know, cause havoc. They're meeting up for a cause. And that's bad, apparently. You know, I understand that a large number of people could mean some problems. I understand that entirely. But at the same time, it's a case of freedom, but the only reason that the guard will be watching them is there's so many of these, and they're apparently all gang members, and they're going to kill everyone. Trust me, I read that. That is what that said. That is just bizarre. You know, it's not just the media that is corrupting the image of young people, youths, teenagers in Ireland. It is also the Garda and anyone in a kind of role of security. You go shopping and you might look a certain way. You might wear a tracksuit. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I don't personally wear it, but there's not that much wrong with it. But they'll follow you around because they think you're going to try your luck here, trying to rob something, trying to get out of the place. And I'm not denying there are people out there who do that. But that does not mean that they're necessarily of the age of 12 to 20. So when security in a shop is watching a teenager, do you not think there's an opportunity that someone who is older than that may possibly be currently leaving the shop with something. Do you ever wonder that? Do you ever wonder when the Garda are driving up and down the road, making sure there's no underage people drinking alcohol in the middle of the street? That there are not other people illegally drinking alcohol, possibly. They are overage, they are entitled to drink alcohol, but it is illegal in Ireland to drink alcohol in public. So I think that they're missing opportunities while they're following young people around, that there are people older than 20 doing the exact same thing. The same thing happens with teachers in school. I have a story that one day I was over to my school, my old school, and I was walking with a bottle of Pepsi. I was walking past and one of the teachers stopped me. In a joking manner he said this, "Hope that's not a bottle of alcohol you have there." I just laughed and walked on. I can see that although he was joking, he was stereotyping me. And he was. I mean, if you think about it now, you may think initially when you hear that, like, oh, he's just joking with you. But think about it. You think about the stereotype that's put on anyone between 12 and 20 in Ireland. I had never drank an ounce of alcohol up that moment. And I still hadn't after that moment. This is before I was 18, and I didn't drink till after I was 18. Never drank an ounce. Not a tiny bit at all. And he was stereotyping me, right there and then. Might be in a joking manner, but nevertheless, now when I think back at it, he was stereotyping me. They also sometimes make people feel different. They show support to other people that maybe are better working in class. But people who, you know, maybe they act up a little bit in class. You know, school is not a place for everyone, I don't think. I mean, there are people that are smart, brilliantly intelligent people, but they're just not good in school. And they get discriminated against because they're apparently all these whacked out of their heads, smoking, getting drunk. There's just no need to teach them because they're just going to fail in society. There is no guarantee of that. But teachers do it. They do. And as I've said before, you know, the local community, generally the elderly generation, the older generation of Ireland, they just think the worst of a lot of teenagers, a lot of youth, and a lot of young people. You know, they do. I can't blame them in some sense because they are corrupted by the media. They are blinded by other things. They're blinded by newspapers, radio shows, TV shows. Anything they look at really, you will always find a piece on the youth of Ireland. Where they're robbing places, getting drunk here, having sex there, smoking here, doing drugs there, whatever. You'll always find it in the news. You gotta remember with the media, any type of media, they will solely focus on the bad. Because that will make money. That will make the news. That will make something worthwhile to read when someone buys that newspaper. But they will not focus on the good. They will not focus on the actual amount of people that don't do any of this. That don't go robbing places, that don't smoke, that don't drink, that don't do drugs. Or even if they did it mildly, if they're of the appropriate age to drink. You know? They won't focus on the good side. Because it just will not make good reading. That is as simple as that. That is it. If that is the only thing I said in this video, that the good side of the youth and the young people and the teenagers, or whatever you want to call them, between 12 and 20 in Ireland, the good side will never be represented because it will just not work. Because no one will want to read about how good someone is. Because when you read how good someone is, you think less of yourself, and no one wants to think that. But honestly and truthfully, me in that age bracket, I'm coming out of it now, but me in that age bracket, I can safely turn around and say that the youth, the young people, the teenagers of Ireland, on the majority, they're incredibly nice people. There is a minority of people corrupting the image of people between 12 and 20 in Ireland. And that is a stereotype that covers every single youth between 12 and 20 in this country. Because that is what apparently we want to look at. Because that is what we solely focus on. Because of a few select people. Just to let you guys know, I got a a fair amount of information from the National Documentation Centre on Drug Use, or its website is www.drugsandalcohol.ie. I'll link that all down below anyway if you guys actually want to check out where a lot of the information came from in this video about the media, security, local community, all that stuff. That is me for today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. And of course, I always open the comment section down below. There you guys can let me know what your opinion is on the whole topic and how you feel about it, especially if you're an Irish youth. Please obviously tell me how you have been affected by it. And of course, if you're an international student, an international young person, you of course can say in your country, maybe you have been suffering the same problems. Obviously I'm only basing this on Ireland. If you want to mention that down below, feel free to do that. Lastly, if you have any suggestions on a topic just like this was suggested by Robert Doyle, feel free to leave that down below or on any social media that I will link down in the description box below. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again next week. And yeah, just stay true to yourselves and, you know, you'll get through the stereotypes. Thank you guys for watching and I shall see you then. See you guys. Later.